Where are you sitting right now, Austin?
Yeah, I'm in Katy, a suburb of Houston. I grew up down here and been living in Dallas for the past 6 years. But I come down here. My mom's down here, and so I spend a lot of time with her.
I believe Cinco Ranch is in Katy, right?
It is.
Yeah, that's one of our partners with the Arcus Group.
There you go. I played quite a bit growing up there.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yep. Yeah, at Cinco Ranch, Willow Fork, Falcon Point, some of the core clubs around the area. And yeah, Cinco is actually one of Paul Levy's courses back in the day, and he was the president of the PGA about 4 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And then Arcus took over, as they do, successfully.
Yes. Eat them up.
Okay, I think yeah, we've got quite a few people on. Do you want to get us going?
Perfect. Sounds good. Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you all very much for joining us here today. For those I haven't had an opportunity to meet yet, my name is Austin Klinger, and I'm the Director of Business Operations with the Section Office. And leading up to today, wanted to introduce Tag Marshall and Bodo and their team. We started talking with them in August, and as tournament administrators, the technology that they use to track player data moving around the golf course is extremely interesting. And another thing that we enjoyed about our conversations is their heavy investment into PGA members. Have been partners with several other sections, and we're proud to have them as a partner with us this year. They're going to be out supporting the Pro Assistant Championship in February, and we're looking forward to it. So thank you all very much for being here today. Following the webinar, Tag Marshall is going to provide us a list of everybody that attended. We'll make sure that the educational time that we're spending here today, we'll make sure that MSRs are awarded to you. But without further ado, I want to introduce Bodo and the Tag Marshall team, and look forward to hearing more about their technology and how they can help provide exceptional player experiences for your facilities and help out with your operations.
Fantastic. Thank you, Austin, for the kind introduction, and very excited also to be partnering with you and the section, and obviously everyone in North Texas. I have actually been to one of your North Texas events a few years ago over in Fort Worth, and it was exceptionally serious. I think it was the season finale. And I also learned that you have a wonderful and healthy competition with the South Texas section in all facets, including an annual event where you go head to head. Is that still happening?
Yes, we have two. We have the Joe Black Cup and the Levy Cup, and this year we had some good success winning both. So we have both of them, and it was a great year and great playing by our members.
We did not script this. I got just very lucky asking that question. Could have gone very bad for me. Awesome. Okay, let's get going, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I promised to provide some education and some background in terms of data and information that you'll find useful, whether you want to tune into technology or not. Those are things that you can plug in and consider using at your golf course tomorrow. But obviously we'll make a case, and the data makes that case, and the return investment makes that case, that it is a serious consideration to tune technology into your operation as well. But before I do start, I want to share some good news with you, because it's hard to come by these days. So this is some data from a recent NGCOA National Golf Course Owners Association event that we attended over at Kiowa. It's also one of our partners. And they shared this research that finds that there's about 25 million committed golfers, and that's probably not new to you. 12.6 million are on course only. So a lot of your members and customers. Then there's quite a nice number that do both on and off course golf. And it's interesting how this breaks down in terms of average age, female participation, non-white participation, and the coveted 100,000 K up income earning bracket. But what's very encouraging is that in 2016, I believe, the National Golf Foundation started tracking off-course golfers for the first time, because they realized, well, these are people who've got a golf club in their hands. They play, at the time, it was a lot of mini golf, putt-putt, maybe the odd driving range only. But obviously with the advent of Topgolf, this number has tripled. And we now have 12.4 million people playing off-course golf only. And if you think to yourself, well, where are we getting that next generation player from, and how can we get them to come onto our course? Well, they already have a club in their hands, right? And they're Topgolf. And the nice thing here is that the average age is obviously younger. So this is really the next generation. The female percentile is high. And it's also nicely integrated. But what's really surprising, or maybe not at all, is that the high income percentile is virtually the same as the on-course. So it's a fantastic audience to go after. And if you ever wondered if this is really going to be the future of the game, then you need to just look as far as Callaway, who obviously paid $2 billion to own Topgolf, because they know that this is going to feed plenty of business and plenty of brand loyalty from all the people that they're hoping to convert onto your golf courses, right? So it's good to be mindful of that, and also be mindful of what is in their golf experience right now, which is obviously Topgolf, Drive Shack, what have you. It's short, it's entertaining, right? And it's fun, there's music. So I think we're going to see a lot of that on our golf courses in the next couple of years, because that's what this group of players wants. Shorter formats, music, entertainment, automation, technology, all of those things that come with Topgolf, where we're all having a lot of fun. At the same time, obviously, we want to retain a lot of the beautiful character of the game and be true to that too. Just really encouraging, because that latent demand and the total number here is quite significant. In terms of ourselves at Tag Marshall, we are Atlanta based. You can hear from my accent that I am not a Georgia native. I am German, born and raised, and I've been working in the technology field for a long time. As a business, we have been around the block now for almost 7 years, and we work with 500 partners at this point, and we're very blessed to be working with some of the very best, including the likes of Oakmont, Baltusrol, Hazeltine, for instance. They're all multi-year partners of ours. Also Kiowa, I mentioned, Pebble Beach, Banded Dunes. I'm sure that either these are on your bucket list, or you have already played or taken some players out that side. We also work with the European Tour, the USGA, the R&A, just adding value where we can as a technology partner and a research partner, and are quite nicely established across the US market now. But what the most exciting part for us is that we get to learn from these very best managers as well, and how they run their operations, and they're certainly industry leading. And there's a lot of problems that the club down the road is trying to solve that they're also solving, right? And we can maybe share some of the tips and some of the things that they do well with you all. Let me jump into our first section. If we want to create a better player experience, we need to first understand what is it that makes a great player experience. So what I would like to do is just launch a poll, so you can give me your opinion of what you believe are the top 3 player experience factors. Let me just launch that. And if you wouldn't mind just hitting a few buttons here, pick 3. Between course design, course conditioning, clubhouse and amenities, pace and flow of play, playing partners in my group, accessibility, tee times availability, and cost and value. So if you had to pick any 3, which ones do you think float to the top when it comes to the players and what they want from a round of golf? And obviously some of these are fairly static variables. You cannot just adjust your course design. It is what it is, unless you have a lot of time and budget. And others are very much manageable variables, right? So always good to read the room a little bit. I don't want to wait too long while you hit some buttons here, but let me just end the poll and show it to you. So what you found, and of course I'm not surprised, is that you're rating course conditioning, pace and flow of play, and cost and value really high as critical to the player experience. And if you think about it, if we have a wonderful course design and it's beautifully conditioned, but we are not getting our players through in a decent time and have to wait, well, that negates from those first two factors that we put all this effort in. So it all works in tandem. And ultimately, if you get those things right, course conditioning, pace and flow of play, that probably equates value as well. And sometimes $500 is a great value round. If you're band and dunes, for instance, you can't do better than that. And sometimes $25 is bad value if some of these very basic items that are so essential are not quite up to scratch. So to back yourselves here, this very recent NG2A and USGA research from just a few months ago shows that conditioning of the golf course is the top operator's priority. What they believe is key to the player experience the season right now. Like, these are evergreens, obviously, right? What's surprising here is a welcoming attitude towards women, because we realize that we want to be open to that demographic, and there's a lot of women golfers that we can attract if we do it smartly. And yeah, just to remind ourselves that they already have, many of them have a golf club in hand, playing at Topgolf. So if that's 40%, I believe it was, out of 12 million participants, of course, that is a lot of lady golfers that we need to create a welcoming space for. And then very close to that, pace of play, always a topic, right? Physical beauty and aesthetics of the golf course, that I would just lump that into conditioning. And then cost and value, which is again made up of conditioning and a good flow of play normally. And obviously you want to have a good service attitude as well. And if you get those things right, you'll always have members and customers. From the player's point of view, the research is very similar in that they saying 82%, which is top ranking, say course condition is critical to them, and very close to that, again, pace and flow of play at 74%. In between that is who's in my playing group, my playing partners, which comes down to tee time availability and ease of booking a tee time, right? But if we do those things right, then we make people happy, and that also allows us to ask for more, right? In terms of the value we're creating. And to dig into this just a little bit further, there is some amazing research that was done by the University of Wisconsin START on behalf of the USGA, defining the golfer experience. And again, these researchers, and that's Professor Christina Schoonover, who's on stage here. We know her really well. She's the director of golf operations at our partners Erin Hills up in Wisconsin, the famous 2017 US Open site. And her colleague really dug deep into this, and they are user and customer experience specialists as profs, right? But also Christina certainly wears a golf hat, being in charge of everything golf related at Erin Hills. And she really puts the science to good use because they create an exceptional experience. And obviously it's an exceptionally well-run business too. And they defined 1,000 touch points in a golf experience. That sounds crazy, but if you think about it, between these sort of cycle points, engage, that's when a player thinks about, hey, I want to go play around, let me call a mate. Where am I going to play? Well, if I'm a member somewhere, that's an obvious destination, but maybe there's a club down the road that I haven't been to in a while. Let me see if they've got a tee time. Then I arrive, I drive through the gate. All of these are touch points. I get greeted. Maybe I pick up a sleeve of balls. All of these are touch points. I play my round of golf, including halfway. All of these are touch points. And then post round, grab a beer, grab a burger. And extend is often the club reaching out saying, hey, we hope you enjoyed your round. Please come back soon. So you can very quickly see that 1,000 touch points can happen within the space if you look at the detail. And it's important that these all contribute to the experience, but they're not all created equal. Some of them are perfect frustrators, which sounds a bit strange, but it's the antidote to perfect delighters. So the things that really delight players and the things that really frustrate players. And then in between, obviously, there's satisfied, dissatisfied, there's some sort of neutral territory. And we need to understand what is it that really moves the needle for golfers that we need to be careful about so that we do not frustrate them and that we do delight them wherever we can. So the first thing we need to look at is this really a good representation of the cycle of the player experience? And we would argue that it isn't, because golf, like I'm showing here, should be much bigger. This is really what drives the bus, right? That is the decision. I'm going to play golf. I'm not there to drive to the gate. I'm not there to have a burger afterwards. I'm there for the golf. That's it. And also I'm playing a lot of the time that I spend in this cycle is on the golf course. So this weighs heavily, and anything that happens out on the golf course, like Matt Barksdale from Pinehurst always says, the on-course sentiment is the post-round sentiment. That's how I feel. That's how I feel about my round. How did I feel on the course? How do I feel on the course right now? That's how I feel after the round. And we want that to be as good as possible. So we need to understand what is it that makes the player experience happen between all those touch points. And here's some surprising, or maybe not all surprising, research information. And Austin, I'm going to ask you in just a minute what you think about this. So out of 1,000 touch points, the worst overall scores in terms of the perfect frustrators are other people's speed. So if other people are, according to me, not quick enough and they get in my way and I have to wait, that's super frustrating as a golfer. The old slow play in front of me. And at the same time, corrective pace of play actions. So if then eventually a marshal comes over and says, hey, you're slow, that is the overall worst score. And these are, the last one is communication and education as far as management is concerned. And other people's speed, well, that's an overall management problem, right? Because we are responsible for 200 players out there, and we need to ensure that we do the greater good management and make those decisions. At the same time, at the top end of what delights people, of course, conditioning ranks high, but positive ranger etiquette is the top overall scoring. And this is so surprising, because who would have thought that this is what makes players so happy? But I believe it's because it's so unusual, right? Because that whole ranger and marshal role, like it says here, is not well liked on a golf course. And here's the first opportunity for us to do things differently. But first, let me ask you, Austin, from your point of view, and as a golfer, and obviously having worked in the business, what is this surprising to you? Like, you think of yourself on a golf course with your buddies?
So I look at it more from my role in out at our championships and helping monitor pace of play. Really understand the last thing that we want to do is interrupt a group while they're in the midst of their competition. However, the number one feedback that we get, whether it's in our professional events or on our junior side, is pace. And so we have to go and address it. And we do our best to, when having to address pace, to try and make it positive. But I would say it was a bit interesting to hear that it is that well received when it's done correctly.
Okay, that's great first-hand experience right there, and we do that. We do work with the R&A. We've done the New York State Open and quite a few big events as well, where technology helps management, right? And it really has a critical role to play in that if the pace isn't quite up to stack, then people get very frustrated out on the golf course. But also we need to be very sensitive how we manage it. And I think you obviously are, right, because you don't want to interrupt, and sometimes the stakes are really high at a big tournament, but often also for the weekend warrior, the stakes are very high because they're betting with their friends, and if they're falling out of their own rhythm and they get frustrated and their score starts to plummet, That's very often they blame it on other people's speed and somebody's getting in my way and I can't play the way I want to, right? So it's a huge factor. But just some quick learnings here to take away that you can all utilize at your facility, bearing in mind that the ranger and marshal role is not well liked. So what we normally share with our partners that start to work with us is, well, let's turn this role upside down. Because here's the marshal, ranger, the authoritarian, that really is not a good value add for golfers, where we're in the golfer experience business, right? So why would we invest in a role that really detracts from the experience? So the very simple things that you can consider doing is in terms of pace and flow management, where we have an obligation because people are telling us we don't like being stuck behind other people. We don't want things to be slow. We have to manage that. So a few of the things is that we don't want, ideally, is an environment where there's no expectations set. It's like, hey, just come and play. We need to set expectations, and that comes down to communication. So if your course plays to a 410, please make your players aware of that so that they know this is the expectation, and we're trying to keep everyone on that pace so that everyone can have a great round, because we are responsible for 150, 200 people out there, and they all have paid to be and have a great time, or they're all members and have rights, right? A negative attitude. So this is the traditional marshal role that says, you're slow, pick it up, and comes over and glares at people looking for problems. Like, this is really not a positive experience enhancer. It is very, very, very bad idea. And if the poor marshal, I mean, what's he supposed to do, right? If he has that conversation, you're slow, pick it up. What the golfers say, no, we're not. It's the guys in front of us. It's always confrontational. And it really leaves a bad taste. And it's very easy to do that differently, right? And they're unfriendly encounters. And I've got a friend of mine who, the first thing it does when it comes to a public course, he finds a marshal and tips the guy $20 and says, please be nice to me and and leave me in peace. And maybe this is a tip boosting strategy that the marshals have, but I don't think so. And it's the only guy that I've ever learned that does that. Yeah, these encounters are not generally not adding to the experience, and it's not engaging, right? Normally it's just, I'll watch you until you make a mistake and then I'll come for you. So these are the don'ts, right? How can we do it differently? If we set expectations, right? At this course, that's how we want to play. If we use information and data as much as possible, because information and data turns the hearsay, the anecdotal, the perception into plain facts. And if you have a paced conversation, even if it's sensitive, if you have data, it's a factual conversation. It's not in any way confrontational. We want also to foster a positive, supportive approach that's non-confrontational. So the easiest way to do that is just to adjust language. Instead of saying you're slow, pick it up, because no player wants to be called slow, much like you don't want your golf course to be called that is a slow golf course, right? There's a terrible pace of play at this golf course. You don't want that. The easiest way to reposition that is to say you're a bit out of position, as in you're supposed to be 300 yards ahead or 5 minutes ahead, and let me help you. So that is easy for a player to compute, because we are not categorically calling them slow, which they cannot handle. And if you've been called slow on a golf course, you know that your blood pressure rises immediately, because no, you're not slow. So change the verbiage around this. You're a bit out of position, very easy. And then visibility is key. And those interactions should be friendly and with a Ritz-Carlton smile. So maybe we need to recruit accordingly. So this example here, well, there's a lady doing this job because we don't need the authority. And this is a player experience assistant or a course ambassador opportunity. So over and above how do we approach players and how are we supportive, we can also change the name of the role from a marshal or a ranger to a course ambassador. And that immediately changes the perception of what this person is here to do. A course ambassador, a player assistant is here to help me. A marshal or ranger is here to police me. And those are such simple changes that you can do whether you use tech or not. And then this becomes an experience enhancer. And remember, we have now tackled some of these key items that golfers are saying are really breaking their round or they're making their round. We're managing other people's speed. We're being proactive, and I'll show you how technology can help you do that. The corrective pace of play actions are supportive with positive ranger etiquette. We're doing it in a positive way, and we're doing away with a ranger or marshal name, calling it something else, something that's non-confrontational. Okay, let's jump to the next section. How are Texas courses, and obviously not only Texas courses, but 500 others, using technology to improve the play experience? And here's a little quote from a guy called Peter Drucker. He says, what gets measured gets managed. If you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And he's very well-known management thinker and author. And you already measure a lot of things at your operation. If you didn't, you'd be flying blind, right? So how can we measure what happens with the play experience and out on the golf course? So here's an example of a traditional measurement that we normally use when it comes to pace of play. And one of those is the average round time, right? So here's an example. That's a course that says we want to play to 4 hours, magic number, 4 hours. And then they play 3,300 rounds in March, and they're coming in at 406, and you think, hey, well done, guys. That's a good result. But the problem with the average is that it hides the outliers. It hides the quick stuff, and it hides the slow stuff, because obviously those balance each other out. And this exact club's data actually looks like this. If you dig a little bit deeper, 73% of these rounds are actually not on pace, and 27% are on pace. And some of those are significantly quicker. It's early morning rounds, twosomes, what have you. And that in the end gives you an average that looks really good. The problem is that if you dig even deeper, that half of these rounds are actually 20, 30, even 40 minutes out. And that's not to say that they're all slow players, no, but you know, when the train stops out on the course, it stops, right? And everyone behind gets impacted. And this is what happens. So even if we have some sort of data that we're looking at, we need to look at the right data, and we need to do it on a continuous basis, not just every now and then, because otherwise we're flying blind. We don't get the real picture of the reality behind the data. So that's one of the things that obviously we do and dig into and help courses really understand and define what's realistically achievable, and then set out strategies and opportunities to get there. And this is what flying blind looks like. If you don't have any tech, that's what it's like to manage a golf course. It's a big area. There's lots of moving parts, and you just don't know where's the first group out. You know, there should be around about there. Are my guys out there doing their job? Well, I don't know. I can't see them, right? So it's tricky, and this is where technology can obviously help you. So from Tag Marshal's point of view, we do a lot of work with courses that do kart rounds, and we've got a really super high-res GPS unit that we can install. That's got the golfer facing front end, which is very exciting. It's the brightest screen there is. We also have a passive tracker that gets hidden in the cart if a screen is not right for the club. We also can track walking golfers. We do that a lot in the Northeast. We are with our caddy clubs, like those big major hosts, all the way over to Scotland as well, where kart golf is not well liked. But it doesn't matter. All that these units do is send data to our system, and then our system presents it to the people that are plugged into it, and that's normally the player assistants, the Golf Pro. Even a big screen in the clubhouse is helpful, and it really is a Google Maps or Waze of the traffic on your golf course that is very easy to understand. And then we have an amazing backend as well that shows you like the key metrics and the key items that you need to control and get a handle on if you really want to manage this space well and do your course and your players justice. So this is then what happens when you turn on this line of sight. So we make sense of anything that moves, and in very simple terms here, what you would then see is all the playing groups, and much like Waze tells you where there's traffic, we show you also as well where there's live traffic issues out on the course. So it's a number of algorithms that run and constantly monitor and calculate what is the biggest risk. Is there the train that stops somewhere and holds up others? So this is your biggest issue right now, group number 17. Let's take a look. We're popping the sidebar open. We can see who's in the group. We can see when they started. We have all this information without ever going out there. And why is this the biggest problem? Well, they're only on hole 5. They're 6 minutes out of position. Here's the hole by hole progress. The last 3 holes have really slowed down. And they have 2 groups as a tail right now. So these 2 groups are already impacted. So that means this group is impacting 8 players right now. If we do not get them back on track, they're probably going to start impacting more people behind them, right? And we have all this information at a glance, very easy to understand without ever going out and looking for these problems, which is a very inaccurate science to begin with. We also know there's another group that's out of position, but they're not impacting anyone. That's why they're red and not that purple color. And there's a smaller issue on the 14th with a group that's only got 1 group as a tail. And the calculation here, for instance, would include that, well, this group is maybe not as far out of position, but also they're quite far into the round. So their trend is maybe not as negative. They're not going to do too much more damage. So we don't have to necessarily jump on them right away. So this is what line of sight looks like versus not having this information. And if you want to picture the difference, it's like turn off Google Maps and Waze on your smartphone today and leave it off for a week. And you've got no information on traffic or speed traps or where there's any road issues, and you're flying blind, right? And maybe if you want to go to a new place, you get out your paper map. Well, that's what it's like if you don't have the tech. And once you have it, yeah, it's game changing. Further to that, in the back end, where we're collecting data on every single round that gets played at the course every single day, we obviously have data over time. So this is a month view, but every single day I can dig into and I can look at how did the day perform from a tee time to tee time point of view, how our holes performing, which of our holes are choke holes, where are tee box wait times that are worrying, and then we can make adjustments, right? Because now we have data. And like Peter Drucker said, if we can measure it, we can manage it. So now we can make adjustments and we can incrementally improve the situation. One of the things that we always encourage is to track interventions. So if the player citizens go out and chat to players, track those interventions, because that keeps the team accountable. Obviously, we have weather data that's feeding in. And here's that pace distribution that we looked at earlier. So we can immediately see how's our day going in terms of rounds on pace and rounds that are not on pace, or that period. And then we can hold our team accountable and we can set goals. And we can also communicate to players. So yeah, this is just the day-to-day sort of back end with a little bit of training. This gets very addictive to look at, because obviously you want to do well every single day, but also things have to be managed appropriately for weather, or if you've got a big day, right? You need to know what's coming so that you can manage things. Yeah, here's an example. The data has helped us to gain tee times and increase our capacity. That is incredibly valuable to us. So that's Devin Gee from Oakmont Country Club. Why would Oakmont Country Club care about that? Well, you can imagine that they've got a massive waiting list for guests wanting to play, and at a nice fee, and also a lot of members that want to play with their guests. So additional tee times, additional capacity is worth a lot to them. And they need to, at the same time, ensure that everyone has a fantastic time and there's excellence all over that experience that they're creating. And they need to do it efficiently, right? So what operational efficiencies can be achieved by automating management with tech? Let's take a look at that. And why would we want to automate? Why don't we just get 10 more people to help us? Well, one of the reasons is we can't find them. Austin, I'm going to ask you in a minute, like what your sentiments are with regards to the labor market and what you're hearing, because I know that the Northeast PGA, for instance, earlier in the season, they had 81 assistant positions available that they obviously try and recruit for and help their clubs fill up, and they could not find people, right? So here's what, again, that's NGCOA data. Labor issues ranking really high. The wages going up. A lot of the clubs have, in this current season, increased wages to attract labor. And also, when it comes to candidates that are available to help us manage things, they're finding there's significantly less people available, or slightly less people than last year. So it's quite a stiff labor market. Austin, what are you hearing from? Is that a topic at all at your meetings? Labor issues, do they float high in terms of what people are concerned about?
Yes, yeah, I don't think it's any secret that the status of golf across the nation in the PGA of America, and the need for the next crop of associates to come through. It's high on our agenda of things to look at, and speaking with individual facilities, they're struggling as well. I don't think it's any secret there, whether it's assistants bringing in to the shop and having a full-time role, or whether it's outside services. I think across the board, the boom the COVID boom over the last couple of years has really tested a lot. We're starting to see some things picking up and getting a little bit better, but it's going to be incremental as we continue to work at it. Sure.
Yeah, and I think to top that off, we obviously have to look after more golfers, right? So there's more traffic, and their expectations were in 2020, when COVID was first a thing, people were just so happy that they could go out and play, right? They were also very forgiving if a club was short-staffed and the service levels weren't quite as high as they were used to. But that has long gone, right? The expectations are really high again. So we need to do that justice as best we can. And again, this is where, and this is why we, it's a good consideration to look at technology to help us do those things, right? So when it comes to what we do with Tag, Marshall, obviously we can do all the good geo and GPS tricks that are important to the clubs. That includes to the pin yardage and really accurate range finding. That obviously is a great golfer front-end benefit. And there's food orders, there's advertising, all of those good things are baked into here. But we also want to keep the players aware of their pace so that they can self-manage. And where, at some courses with other tech, this is just everything goes red and everyone says you're 10 minutes late. And the moment you've seen that a few times, you just say, well, if everything's slow here, then why should I bother? But the system really goes very accurate and almost personalizes the tracking so that players are held accountable. And of course, we can also ping them a message. But even with our passive systems, the moment you have this live map in your hand and you go out and approach players and you do that positive etiquette, hey, you're a bit out of position, let us help you get back in position. It changes the amount of times the train stops, and certainly keeps things on track. And that live management and using that data and that accurate data to really pinpoint, accurately go and intervene, rather than look for problems with lots of resources that are always at the wrong place at the wrong time, is very, very helpful. And also great once you have this front end that we've got a Golf Genius integration for live scoring, making tournaments run smoother, and players really love that. They do, of course, who wouldn't? So from how can we help optimize and automate things? Well, if you don't need to pay so much resource attention to what happens out on the golf course, we can obviously pinpoint and optimize labor hours to certain key times in the week as per the data, right? So here's an example. If we know that between 8 and 10, this is our key challenge when it comes to sort of pace challenges out there, that's when we need to pay attention. But this really is a 2-hour slot rather than having a resource out there for 8 or 10 hours. So this is immediately also, if you have this line of sight, why do you need someone on a day that you're not fully busy and jammed, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, what have you? You can just run things from the Pro Shop, and the system will tell you, like, it literally is, it can be set to send you a text message or to even ring your phone and give you an update when there's somebody falling behind a certain pace threshold that you can set. So it is an eyes in the sky that helps you keep an eye out at the situation of the golf course at all times. And of course, also a great party trick if you're somewhere else and you pull out your phone and you check in what's happening on your golf course, and then you ping your team, hey guys, what's up? And they think you're somewhere and you're not watching. So it's helpful. But this obviously goes much deeper than that. So ultimately, how can we impact the bottom line revenue? Because the two things that we're trying to do is improve our live management of things. In that way is a Google Maps smart way of really understanding what's going on and having an easy to understand live traffic update that's to the second accurate out there. At the same time, we also want to understand the underlying variables, like what makes our club move. And I had a great conversation with the manager from Pinehurst earlier in the week. They are now dialing into green speeds versus what's the sweet spot around their flow of play, because the USGA will tell you for every point up, there's a 7-minute, according to their research, slow down in pace. So if you make things too fast, it has an impact. So there has to be a sweet spot, because you also want to provide challenging golf, right? So, and they found the sweet spot now, really aggregating data that they get from us. And it's making a nice impact for them. So, but talking about impact, the bottom line is obviously key. And I want to show you a nice analogy here, if you'll humor me. So, an airplane is not dissimilar from a golf course in that you need a lot of staff to keep things up and running, and it's got extremely high fixed costs, right? And you need to fill up those seats if you want to live. If your golf course is at 10% capacity for a couple of weeks, you're going to hurt tremendously from a revenue point of view. And the same with an airplane. If it's only got 10% seats capacity, it's not going to fly for very long. So what we do effectively with our tech and how we help golf courses is very easily explained in this example. There's a certain amount of seats, business class seats, that are higher priced. So this is, if you will, your dynamic pricing top range Saturday morning, and then you've got your economy class seats, that's maybe your afternoon rounds, right? So what we do effectively is we create additional rounds, and I'll show you now how we do that. We create additional capacity. And why should you care? Well, it's because it's capacity that you never had, and that you can easily add with a little bit of management effort and oversight. And at the same time, we're creating more space for everyone on the airplane. So this is for the same cost, right? So to get this plane off the ground and see it moving, it costs exactly the same. But with some smart tech, we have added additional capacity, a few more seats, in your case, a few more tee times, and everyone else has more space. And of course, the space is an analogy for good flow of play, good pace of play, right? Where things move, and I'm not backing into groups. It's exactly the same as more leg room on an airplane. It's a great experience addition, and here's revenue right there that we can add. So let me show you how we do that. So one of the things that we teach our partners is that we encourage them to, with the help of the data that they get to know, to start implementing more dynamic goal times. So it's not a flat goal time that the course implements, but there's a dynamic element to it. And here's how Pebble Beach does, for instance, and they communicate it really well. They expect first off and early tee times to be 4 hours, and then they stagger things up, 4:15, 4:30, and later in the day, 4:50 is how they want to manage their play. Of course, a course that's not quite as tough to play and maybe not quite as long, they can now do this minus 1 hour potentially, or minus 45 minutes, right? And it's really helpful opportunity to pull the pace of play along from early on in the day and really get management measures in place. And also, like we said earlier, we want to set expectations. Well, instead of saying, well, we want to play this course at 4:10, you can then set expectations by day segment. Like in the morning, that's when we want to play at 3:30. And once you have the data, you can prove that's very much possible. And then you can find the players that are wanting that, and you can stick them into those tee times. And the newbies and the players that want to take their sweet time, well, let's allocate them to tee times that are appropriate. So this is obviously, Pebble Beach can do that. They've got the resources, but there's still principles here that you can apply very easily directly at your course. So here's what this looks like. Once we have identified the median runtime at a course, we can then stagger these goal times, and we would start the day sometimes significantly quicker, not just the first round out, but why not the first 5, right? And obviously the data informs that. But what's key in doing that is that we then really speed things up overall. The average round times come down, and we can also, because if your course normally plays to 4:20, and we can now show, like here, you can play it in 3:20, and we allocate those players that want that experience at a premium often, because there's also research that shows especially under 40s are willing to pay 25% more for a really quick round of golf. Not everyone, but you can now allocate the players that want that, and you can charge them a premium because it's value to them. So if we do that, we can give them an experience that they want, and we can give the players who want to take their time the experience that they want, and not have that one size fits all experience that's tricky to manage. And over and above that, we can add additional capacity, which I'll show you just now. So this is normally what happens. This is obviously our world of data. Here's a course that plays to a flat goal time of 4:20. And sometime after 8 o'clock, their rounds starting to deteriorate. You can see those magenta or purple groups, and then groups that they have as a tail. This is sort of early on in the data collection, so they're not proactively managing all that much yet, and a lot of their holes are playing over time of what they thought their goal time should be. And the starter accuracy, where we're encouraging the starter to really be accurate with sending groups off, that's actually another key for you to pay attention to at your club. Can we get the starter to be accurate sending groups out at the right time? And it's obvious why, right? If one group starts 2 minutes late, the next group starts a minute early, we have taken what could be a 10-minute interval and reduced it to 7 minutes. So that's going to cause problems. So the more accurate the starter is, and the better they communicate around this and set expectations, that's one of the success factors, right, of the first tee. So here we have this day, and it comes in at 4:34 average, right? But there's a lot of rounds that are over, and it's really in that mid-morning crunch time. Now, what happens at this course with live management and with these dynamic goal times applied is a very different story. So now we're starting the day quicker, just under 4 hours, and then we're staggering this up over 4 stagger sets. And we're managing things accordingly, right? Just a few months later, the average round time has gone down to 4:07, and you can see how much of how many of the holes are now playing on pace, and also how much of that pace, if you drill down, is on pace or within 10 minutes. So this is 80% success already just by making a few adjustments and live managing things. And these little red icons, those are player assistant or course ambassador interactions that get logged out on the course. And we obviously want to hold them accountable and saying, like, you need to intervene when the train stops, so that we do not have to play catch up later. So the difference, why does it matter, right? The difference is 4:34 versus 4:07, that's 27-minute improvement. So why it matters is very simple. If you have 200 players out there and they all have 27 extra minutes on average, well, where are they going to spend those? They never had them before. Now they have them. They're going to spend them with you in your food and beverage in your pro shop, right? So it's worth revenue because you can keep them on site in your revenue generating outlets for longer, and they're coming off the course happy. So that's an accumulative 90 hours that they have with you on the single day. That's a lot of time to spend in your F&B and Pro Shop. And it has a material net promoter score impact. Net promoter score is how do you rank that experience out of 10? If conditioning is good and the pace is good, like we're doing here, that's always going to rank high from a net promoter score point of view. And that means people come back, right? Quick side note, research shows that 55% of first-time daily fee course visitors do not return. Only 45% come back and play another round. 55% of first-time visitors do not return. Why? Like, what are we doing wrong? Why don't they come back 10 times? Right? So this is one of the reasons we want to ensure that they have a great experience. And these are some of those factors that count. So to show you just a little bit more how, if we speed things up, so this is a 4-10 flow, 9-minute interval, that's what it looks like between the playing groups, more or less. If these guys now play to 3:30 because we're starting our day quicker, they're obviously covering more ground. And so the 9-minute interval can be tightened to 7 minutes. So we can show that with the data. And there's a sweet spot here as well. 7 minutes interval sounds like a nightmare to manage, but at the right time of day in the morning and with the right players aside here that really want that experience, it's a breeze to manage. It really is. But obviously you need the tech to help you do it. So the difference now is if your total inventory start at 6 a.m., end at 3 is 540 minutes, that's 60 groups that you can do in your T-sheet. If we stagger this and we start our day at a 3:30 goal time, then we ramp it up to 3:40, 3:50, 4:10, and then back down to 4 in the late afternoon, we are creating tee times very quickly. And that's a +3. 3 tee times, 12 more players, 12 times more $80 on a Saturday. And we're giving these guys, everyone gets a better experience, and especially the guys signing up for these quick rounds that they really want to have, they're getting a fantastic experience. So this is an immediate revenue opportunity that a lot of the clubs are taking advantage of. And here's what it looks like. So your before and after, especially those peak late morning spikes that go into the 5 hours, well, that's no longer an issue. And then at those key times, sometimes the improvement's 20, 40 minutes. And that's significant from an experience point of view. And as far as the revenue is concerned, it's significant as well. Obviously, if you have additional tee times available and you can create additional capacity like Oakmont has done, as has Wisconsin Club, that is obviously worth a few more members that you can safely accommodate because they all want to play as much as possible. And in the daily fee space, it's easy for an Erin Hills or Whistling Straits to make lots of money off just a little bit of additional capacity. But this is the club Fieldstone. They literally charge $60 up in Michigan, and they have upped their golf revenue by 25%. And we recently spoke to their manager, so how's it gone this year? And he said, you won't believe it, I have added another 20% in golf revenue this year. So that's just greens revenue, and that's huge, 45% in 24 months period, just managing things, optimizing things, and also executing well on dynamic pricing. But one of the things that he's saying, I cannot dynamically price demand only, I also have to provide more value, right? Because if I'm charging double for my high value rounds, the expectation also increases. So I have to manage things well, and then people will come back and pay that again next week. And that's how he's really changed the business at Fieldstone. So additional green fee revenue, more capacity in rounds, tee time availability is up. We can attract more players because they all want to come play. And alongside that, obviously, food and beverage revenue goes up. And we can get more people through the door. So that's some of the sort of backdrop. If you manage those traffic problems, remember the airplane that we looked at, it's often incremental. I learned earlier from one of my team members that United got a new CEO and they made some incremental adjustments. For instance, they adjusted the weighting of the in-flight magazine to a lighter paper. And because now, if you put 200 magazines into each flight, and they're doing many of them, that saves them $300,000 in fuel annually across their fleet. Obviously, that's tiny, it's a drop in the bucket, but that just shows the intention, right? What can we do if we make small incremental improvements, and the bottom line impact and the improvement impact across an operation, especially over time, is huge. And this is where this opportunity around optimizing what happens out on your golf course and really getting a tight handle on things is immensely important. And remember also, players want you to do that, right? That's value to them. Give me a great flow round on a nicely conditioned course and I'll be very happy, and I'll even pay more. So this is where tech and automation can help you. And I hope that you found this insightful. The one thing I didn't show you, obviously, we can also dial in superintendents and tracking what they do and adding value in that space with heat maps, for instance. So that is another efficiencies opportunity that we look to provide with our system. If there are any questions, please shoot them through now. I'll try and answer as best I can. And while you think about those, I would have loved to introduce you to Joey Walters, who's our GM over in Atlanta, but he's down in Florida working. No, he is. And he's got family down there. And also John Wilmore, who's our sales director and super knowledgeable when it comes to sharing information and consulting on is technology right for your golf course. So please do reach out to them or to myself if you have any questions. And I cannot see any questions pop up in our chat. Austin, anything from your side?
Not very much. Just thank you very much for your time and walking through everything. A chance to go through it earlier along the process, but getting the in-depth look was very interesting. And you mentioned the technology and automation is a huge value, but I think the information that can be provided to each facility is a ton of value, and having a greater understanding of actually how the players are moving around the course and being able to understand the flow of the course, where there are trouble areas, and maximizing it from there. I think all of that information just allows, from a tournament administration standpoint, allows us to move to position our officials in the right places, and from a facility standpoint, allows it to just be more informed, more knowledgeable about their course, and providing more value to their members and their facility.
Yeah, I think quite right. You can never know enough about your business, right? And we also have to just be respectful. What a beast it is to manage, right? There's so many moving parts. So the more information, the more line of sight, the more data, the easier that becomes. And also you just become so much more sure-footed around, especially sensitive conversations. If you have data and information, they're non-confrontational, they become fact conversations, and it's really changes things. So one question is like, how long would it take if somebody wanted to get going with the system? We normally work on a 6 to 8 week turnaround. Obviously, we're busy. We're doing a lot of installs every month. And then while that is underway, the teams already get trained. That's very straightforward. And we've got a fantastic team that does that with video-based training. And then the club gets up and running, and within 30 days, most of the features and the calibrations up and running for the course. So it's quite a quick and painless process. Let me just see, is there another question? Well, how do members and players respond? And another question. I see you interface with 4UP software. Not sure you can change the starting tee times for dynamic pricing. Yes, we do interface with 4UP. We also, we've got integrations with most of them. And these opportunities around changing tee times and being more dynamic are things that we are obviously also discussing with the tee sheet providers. And there's integrations and APIs going both ways. So it's certainly something that they're very interested in, because what makes your business better, obviously it's good for their business, right? 4UP are a great team to work with for us too. Then how do members respond? Yeah, we do know that members and every club's got its own culture and temperature around change and around new things. But we find that with a little bit of communication around, this is why we do it, we're respectful of your time, and we really want to be known for being a club where you can play a quick round. Members love that, right? And sure, there's always 3 or 4 or 5 that really don't want to be tracked, and maybe there's a reason for that, but it's a greater good investment, right? And also it's really helpful. For instance, one of the things that we have is a track map that is a post-round record of how the round has gone, including the names and timestamps at every hole. Also the pace status, like were they on pace, or did they hold up others, or were they delayed by other groups? That's all recorded. And also interactions with the team is recorded on there. So if anyone ever, member or a guest, storms into the clubhouse, oh, this was a 5-hour round again, it felt like 17 hours, like I'm not coming back here, give my money back, or why do you keep doing this to us? You can then really look at, okay, let's see what actually happened. And very often perception becomes reality for players. So they're perceiving, because they waited on a hole for whatever reason, maybe they played as a twosome and they're perceiving things to be incredibly slow. Well, if you can show them the data and it's like, well, we wanted to play to 4:10 and you played at 4:16. And also on these 2 instances, you actually held up a group behind you. Well, that can't be argued with, right? And very often, once a couple of those conversations have been had, the attitude changes, because they and the players realize, okay, there's real data, and also the club is being proactive around things. So that's again where data changes how people perceive their experience. And we've got a lot of clubs that put this live map and their pace expectations on a big screen in the clubhouse. And guess what happens? Nobody wants to be the playing group that's bright purple and big and 15 minutes out of position coming back into the clubhouse. So there's some self-policing. Because all players are quick, as we know, until they're not. So it really helps. And it's just an even playing field. And it's not a hearsay, potentially confrontational environment any longer. And also, yeah, we've got very busy clubs, and we've got clubs that do 12,000 rounds a year and want every round to be absolutely perfect. Communication and expectations really help. And what a lot of clubs do is they highlight their pace setters, right? We can build player profiles at private clubs, and then they really highlight their pace setters and congratulate them. And guess what? Everybody wants that gold star. And then people just try a little bit harder. Also they all know there's an awareness. And if the pace setters get tracked, that also means I get tracked. So they try be compliant a little bit more. So it's very helpful, and members really ultimately and very quickly buy into that, because it's for their own benefit. That was a long way around answer to that question. Okay.